All right, UFC fans, welcome out to another episode of the GT Sports GT Sports Unlimited, where on Wednesdays evenings we talk UFC. Of course, we're going to break down UFC 268, some good fights. Last week we previewed 268. Now we're going to break it down, and I've got my partner here who's here every Wednesday with me. He's the one that breaks down these fights and previews them. He's an expert here. So we're gonna do some UFC talk. Florian, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing wonderful. Super excited to talk about these fights, man. It was a good fights. It was a good card on this one. Pretty much every fight of these five fights were fireworks.
Absolutely, and I know you're gonna break them down for us. I can't wait for that. But and we're gonna be here every Friday, every Wednesday at 5 o'clock. Val and I are making an effort to come out here. We're both pretty busy, but we find time. He has to break all this stuff down sometime between the week before we come in. He's been doing a great job. So Val, I just want to say I appreciate everything you do as we try to build this GT Sports Unlimited UFC episode, right? The part that we do here once a week, and keeping the fans updated on what's going on, not only with what we're going to break down 268, but the next one 269. If we have any information on that, and then of course, if there's anything else about other fighters, any update, there's always something going on. Because Val, I'll just stream through ESPN, UFC, man. There's always something going on, right? So it's kind of hard to keep up with everything, but there's always something going on. So I'm going to pass it over to you, man. I know you're going to break down 268, so go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, man. UFC 268 was pretty much a banger, man. Really, really great. If you are a fight fan, then 268, man, that one you're gonna really enjoy it. So we're gonna start with in the main card. The first fight was Justin Gaethje versus Michael Chandler. And this was a really good battle. If you know Justin Gaethje, he's durable. He might like to keep his chin maybe sometimes tucked in, and he has really good footwork, really good mobility. But he does seem to kind of have he might drop his hands, or sometimes he could have even his chin too. Usually he does a good job of covering up, but sometimes he has a habit in his technique where he sort of maybe exposes it. And in this case, Chandler definitely went for it. Chandler, now Justin Gaethje's been in the UFC, but Chandler, he just this was his third fight in the UFC. He fought Dan Hooker from a different promotion, knocked out Dan Hooker in the first round. Then he got a title fight with Oliveira. Lost it in the second round, and then so that led him here to Gayci, and so that's pretty much where we start at with here. So in the beginning, they both stand, they're filling each other out, they're trying to get their range, they're trying to get their reach, they're both throwing bombs. Chandler's looking sharp, he's doing very good in the beginning, he has amazing counters. Chandler starts to turn it on, he starts to pour some shots. Chandler has the highest striking volume right now in round one, so Chandler's timing him, he's hitting him first. Things are looking good for him. He's looking like he has the higher striking volume. He's looking like he's scoring all these points on the feet. But towards the end of the round, Gayci is starting to find his rhythms. Gayci proves that he's very durable. We already know this. Round two comes up. Chandler's leg looks very damaged from these kicks that he sustained in round one. So now Chandler gets dropped from a shot in round two, and he shoots for a double leg, but Gayci tries to take the back. So you see, Chandler is slowing down. He used a lot of energy in the beginning. He used a lot of high output, high volume strikes. He was really connecting with precision shots, trying to get him out of there. But by round two, he's kind of slowing. Gaethje's things are starting to turn for Gayci, so they trade more strikes. They stick because they were wrestling. Gayci had his back, but Chandler doesn't give up. They get back up, so they're trading. Gaethje's starting to find success in the striking here. So by round three, at the start of the third, they're still standing. Chandler showing more of a sense of urgency. He kind of knows, okay, maybe I won the first round. Second round, I didn't do too good. So now the third round, he shows that urgency. He shows that the consistent pressing forward, trying to get control. But see, he's already tired by round three, so he can only do so much. He has the heart to continue and not get finished, but Gayci is already pouring it on. So in round one, when Chandler was going boom, 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 see, Gayci was laying back. Not really a strategy I like, but for Gayci it works, and for Jan, I guess it works too, or Piotr Jan that was. But right now with Gayci, he kind of has that style here where he's very good. He's very explosive when he wants to be. And Gaethje doesn't have a problem with letting his opponent waste their energy. Yeah, go on, hit me, try to score your points, try to burn your energy, because I'm going to come back in the second and third round. And this is pretty much what happened with Gaethje. Gaethje lost that first round, came back in the second, came back in the third. So right now in the third, I want to say with Chandler, I give him props, because even though he started really good, really well, it looked like he was about to win and stuff, he kind of started slowing. So now he says, I got to get these round two back. So with that being said, even though he burned that high energy in the beginning, he still had the heart. He did not quit, and he tried so much to set up big shots and land big shots in this third round, because again, he's showing the urgency now. He's trying to get back that round two that he lost, because round one pretty much, I think, went to Chandler. But Gaethje won round two, Gaethje won round three, fight went to a decision, Gaethje won via decision. Now, I think it's crazy, because this is what happened. This is the base of this fight here. Chandler came in heavy. He burned a lot of gas in the first round, but Gaethje didn't go down. Chandler started to slow. Gaethje was starting to take over the fight, but Chandler was not out. Even when he showed signs of fatigue, he was throwing strikes. He was really trying to put out offense, but Gaethje just did a real good job of implementing his own strategy, his own game plan. So he was stopping Chandler just enough, just at the right time, when Chandler was starting to get tired, when Chandler was starting to kind of fatigue there. So Gaethje saved his energy in the beginning, came back in the end, and it totally worked for him. So as the fight went on, Gaethje was starting to take the lead on strikes, and he looked the fresher fighter. Chandler was still delivering his own offense, but he was fatigued at this point, so he really couldn't hit Gaethje with anything that would put him down, I think, by that third round. But he was still connecting, showing plenty of heart. Gaethje weathered the early storm, and when Chandler started to slow, Gaethje turned up the heat. And I had Chandler winning the first round, losing the second round. Evidently, he lost the third. Gaethje wins this by decision. As the fight went on, like I said, Gaethje started, getting Chandler's rhythm, getting his timing, and he controlled the second and third round for the most part to get the decision. The stats here on this one, we got the total strikes. Gaethje was 64.9% total strikes. Chandler had 63.4. I'm sorry, he had 42.3 total strikes. Now, moving over to significant strikes, Chandler had this is where Chandler had 63.4 significant strikes over Gaethje had 63.4 significant strikes over Chandler's 42%. And in the takedowns, Gaethje didn't have anything. Chandler had 1 takedown out of 6. Wasn't enough though. Didn't really control him for too long. Gaethje knew enough. He got to the ground after a couple of seconds or so. He was able to recollect himself and do the right movements, make the right adjustments to get the fight back on his feet. So for Chandler, he got 1 takedown out of 6. There was no submission attempts on either side. So, pretty much the tale of this fight was Gaethje weather that early storm to come back in the second, third round. And that's that one. So I'm going to move on to the second one now. Second one was Billy Quarantillo versus Shane Burgos. So I'm going to kind of walk this one through here. Both won in round one. They both kind of start with heavy strikes. They got punches, they got kicks. Burgo gets a body lock on, and Billy gets him against the fence. So they break and right back to striking on the feet. And definitely we got some technical kickboxing going on between these two here. Burgos is landing good shots. End of round 2. I think, Burgo possibly could have won the first round. So in round 2, they start right away. The coaches are yelling. You could hear the coaches yelling in the back as they're going, technical strikes, heavy technical strikes here. Both are timing each other, landing strikes. Burgos gets Billy against the fence, maybe attempting to take him down, but Billy gets off the fence and gets the fight right back into the middle of the octagon. So more technical strikes then between the two. So Shane's showing more cosmetic damage here towards the end of the round. Burgos starts to pour on heavy strikes. Billy Quarantillo, he takes a lot of damage here, but he shows a lot of heart by continuing to stare down Burgos and take more punishment. Shane, I think, wins this round. In round 3, Billy's leg is pretty much whack at the beginning of the round, due to the leg attacks from Burgos. They continue to technical strike. So Billy's hurt pretty much at this point. But he's a tough fighter. Billy goes for a leg lock, but Shane easily gets out of danger, and he gets the fight back to the middle, where he soon gets Billy against the fence again. You know, Shane was finding a lot of success here against the fence. He might not have been able to really drag him down too much, but he was really holding him there, keeping the control, keeping the pressure, and he was peppering him with shots, prepping him with knees and legs right here against the fence. So Burgos was using the fence to his own advantage here in this particular fight. So we're still in the third round here. They end up back in the middle. It goes back and forth with the two. And then they get him against the fence again. So he keeps doing this against the fence. Billy goes for another leg lock because he says, hey, you know, Burgos is putting the heat on. He's putting the pressure. He's saying, I'm going to try to do some submission. Usually that's what happens. Billy Q is a really good striker. He makes really good, he throws with heat. He throws with intention, but Burgos was just kind of maybe a little bit superior, a little step ahead, maybe on the striking here, because Burgos seemed to be having more success. Not that Billy Q wasn't finding his distance or finding his range, but Burgos just did a better job at implementing his game plan. Instead of giving Billy Q distance, instead of letting Billy Q tag him, Burgos pressed the pace, led the dance, controlled the pace of the fight. And this not only adds up because in the judging, the scores go from striking, grappling, control, aggression, all, you know, in that order and stuff. And that's kind of what helped get Burgos this win too, because he didn't get the finish, but he was putting the pressure on, and it looked like Burgos, between the two, it looked like Burgos was just a little step ahead. He was the one that was outscoring him. He was the one that was keeping the control. So pretty much the story for this fight is this fight had a lot of back and forth between the two, you know, but Burgos was the one who was looking sharper on the feet. He was the one that was pouring on heavy combinations, and he had Billy rocked multiple times. And I think that's what led to this decision victory. Burgos had the higher striking volume. He controlled the pace of the fight for the most part. Billy never backed down. I want to say good things about him too. You know, he never backed down, showed a ton of heart. He's a tough guy. You know, he tried to get some shots of his own in, but he just never quite found his offense in the way that Burgos was able to control him and find his striking offense. He just, the pace and the strikes of Burgos just really began to take over here for Billy, and it proved too much for him. Burgos outscored Billy Q and won via decision. So I mean, the stat, not all, I like giving stats, you know, so I'm obviously going to do it because I like doing it, but I just want to say to the fans and to the people out there that just sometimes the tail of the tail is not always how it looks. But in this case, I think it was just, I mean, what I mean by that is a fight on paper. Sometimes you see a guy on paper and it looks like he won on paper, but then you see the actual fight and it's like, well, the other guy was pressing more and he was, maybe the other guy had more damaging shots or something. So in person, the fight visually can look, okay, well, this guy won or this guy won. But on paper, it's the same way. If you take away that fight, if I never visually see it and I just see this fight on paper, it shows that Burgos had the upper hand, and it showed that Burgos was outscoring them on the feet and he was out controlling them. So in this case, this is a scorecard that was pretty much accurate because on paper, Burgos won, and in the visually, when you watching the fight in person or on TV, whatever, if you get a visual of the fight, he won. So the stats here, this is one where it makes sense. So Shane Burgos had 70%, 0.5 of total strikes, where Billy only had 48.8. And I actually think that was changed to 51. I had actually written down another note. That one was changed to 51.2. So I stand corrected. It was 48, and then they changed it to 51. So still, regardless, you got total strikes 70% with Burgos. You got 51% with Billy. It just, you know, it's a no-brainer there that Burgos was landing the more shots. Significant strikes, same story. Burgos had 67%, and Billy Q had 47%. So in the striking department on the feet, Burgos really outclassed him. He was just one step ahead in the striking volume. Shane didn't get any takedowns. Billy didn't get any takedowns. Billy tried to take him down a whopping 14 times and could not do it. So this says a lot about Shane Burgos's takedown defense, that he's in the right direction, he's headed in the right path with his good techniques here. Because if he's gonna find success on the feet and stand with somebody, he's gonna need to find takedown defense and work on this. Now, I will say that Billy Q's, if you know Billy Q, he is more of a striker and more of like a wrestler and submission guy second. He doesn't, and most, if you follow his wins and his record, most of his wins are just TKOs and stuff. So he likes to strike. So he did. So with that being said, Burgos didn't have 100% takedown defense against somebody that was a well-known, amazing grappler. You know, if Burgos goes up against somebody who's amazing submission grappler, we might see him get taken down or two or whatever. Of course, he's gonna try not to, but with Billy Q here, he's not really. What I'm trying to say is that he's not really a grappler too much. So he tried to take him down 14 times. It's very impressive that Shane Burgos denied him a takedown 14 times. But now this leads further questions. So now we know that Burgos did enough to win via decision. He outscored him and stuff and had the control enough to win the decision. But this leads to another question. If Burgos can advance and let's say he fights somebody more higher rank or whatever, closer to the title, well, I would like to kind of see him go up against maybe a more crazy grappler now, because we saw him go up against a really well striker, a really good striker, a really good precision striker that is Billy Quarantillo, because this guy packs heat. I've seen him throw fast combinations and I've seen him really piece up people and get wins. So Shane Burgos competed against him. They went toe-to-toe, and you know what? He came out ahead on the feet. He came out ahead on the takedown defense. So now, how could you challenge Burgos? Now Burgos won. You win. Sometimes they say, well, you don't learn anything when you win. But now he's going to say, well, you know, I'm going to challenge. He's going to challenge himself to fight somebody better to get closer to that title. And I would like to see him. I think it would be interesting to see him fight maybe somebody with more grappling, more submission, somebody who's going to have more of a threat on the ground than Billy Q, because we saw that on the feet, Shane Burgos holds really well. He holds his own really well on the feet. So that fight, Burgos wins via decision. Moving on to the third fight, which was Frankie Edgar versus Marlon Vera. And, you know, this one you knew was going to be awesome. If you're a fan of Frankie, he's been in the UFC a long time. He has been in the UFC since, 2007. He's a legend, you know. He's broken many records. He has a lot of achievements, this guy, Frankie Edgar. But, you know, I'm going to kind of break this fight down here from the very beginning because, you know, this one was a very good one. In round one, they begin to strike on their feet. You know, Chito Vera appears to be bigger than Edgar, he's built more, his body just has more volume to Edgar. Edgar really looks like the smaller of the two here. So Frankie shows his fast hands with some combinations. You know, frankly, he's circling while Vera is staring him down, trying to get some shots on him. So Frankie goes for a takedown, gets it. Vera tries to get a choke on the way down. And throughout this fight, Frankie's always going for takedowns. He's trying to get him down. You know, Frankie comes from a street boxing background. You know, when he was first in the UFC, everybody knew him as a striker. He was a heavily based striker. And whatever wrestling he did, whether he was predominantly a wrestler or if he was predominantly a striker, everybody knew him as a striker. He would go into fights and he would want to stand on the feet. He would only turn into a wrestler if you hit him. And he was like, okay, you have good power. I'm going to turn. That's when people start turning into wrestlers. Frankie never really would wrestle too much, but now he's getting older. He kind of knows, hey, I can't really be taking the damage. Like maybe 10 years ago, Frankie could get hit 1,000 times, but now he's like, okay, well, you know, I'm getting a little older. Can't maybe get hit as much as I used to because the power's there, but the chin is one of the first things to go. So he knows this. So his strategy definitely was in sync and in tune with that knowledge there, because instead of just standing there and banging and trading with Chito the whole time, he did mix it up. He didn't just do striking. He did takedowns. He did wrestling. And he didn't get all his takedowns, but he did get some of them. And when he did get them, for the most part, he did have a little bit of control time. Yes, Vera was able to maybe get out of a takedown or two or whatever. But for the most part, Frankie did have some control time there. He did find some success in his game, but it just wasn't enough success. It wasn't enough. He found some things that were working, but he just was missing a couple of little screws there, a couple of little adjustments there to actually get the win. He ended up getting caught with a kick from Vera. But before that even happens, Edgar is looking good on the feet. Vera isn't really catching him with too much. Like both guys are getting rocked here and there, but it wasn't really any. It was before the fight was actually over. Before Vera was able to TKO him, the fight was on the ground, of course. Got back up on the feet. Vera ends up doing a front leg kick, almost like Anderson Silva style. There's a video of Anderson Silva doing this, and it was made famous too. It was one of the best front knockout kicks. So this one kind of was the same thing, except Vera delivered it to Frankie. And in the beginning of the third round, it's looking like Vera might need a finish. And this is what I'm talking about. Because in rounds 1 and 2, even though Frankie was older and everybody thought, oh, Vera was going to just run all over him, he was holding his own. He said, hey, I can wrestle with this guy. I can strike with this guy. I think Frankie just kind of maybe made one mistake. Maybe he had his hands down. Maybe he had his chin exposed. Obviously, his chin was exposed, and he just got caught because he got caught in the third round. So I'm pretty sure that he was feeling comfortable. The fight was almost over. It was the third round. He's kind of saying, oh, I might, if I can just be careful, I could maybe get to a decision. If I can knock him out, that's great. But I think Frankie just got a little too loose. I think he should have kept a little tight. You don't want to get too tight, but I think he should have just been a little tight. I think he got too loose, and I think he knew in the back of Edgar's mind, I think he knew, hey, I probably won the first one. I probably won the second one. Maybe in the third one, maybe I can just Frankie's not really that guy. I don't want to say that he purposely is going to slow down, because that's not true. What I'm saying is he probably thought, hey, if I won 1 and 2, let me just kind of maybe box with them or just try to see. He wasn't really covering up too much. He was just kind of getting loose. And then the front kick to the face in the third round. And it's so sad because Frankie was doing such a good job. And of course, me, I was going for Frankie and stuff. All due respect to Vera, though. Very proud of him for that one. But yeah, I was kind of had picked Edgar for that fight. And just if you know his history, Edgar's just been in this game a little longer. He's older. He's got more experience. He's got more tricks. And it showed. Everything I just said showed Frankie was getting the better control. He was scoring the more points he was looking better on the feet. So not only did he have good control, but he was looking like he was scoring the more points on the feet. And in the third round, it was looking like Vera was going to need a finish. But, Edgar, the longer the fight was going on, Vera was doing good at kind of making adjustments to Edgar, because in the beginning of the fight, when Edgar was able to take Vera down, he was kind of having some control time. But now fast forward to round 3, Edgar tried to take Vera down again, and he couldn't do it. So where Edgar found success before, as the fight went on, Vera is starting to find his rhythm, find his timing. He's starting to find Edgar's movements. So he was able to defend his takedowns more as the fight went on. So in the third round, Frankie goes for another takedown, but gets stuffed. So they just end up continuing to strike on their feet. So Vera goes forward, and he's even getting tagged with strikes. So Frankie gets a takedown in the third round, but it's quickly back on the feet. So you can see here, whereas Frankie had that control, now he's getting them down, and then boom, right back up. See, Vera's starting to make adjustments here in the wrestling. So Vera executes a front kick that lands flush with Edgar's jaw, dropping Edgar, and the referee basically stops the fight. Edgar was looking good throughout that fight, and this is pretty much the last of it here. This is pretty much what happened. Edgar was looking good throughout this fight, but that leg kick came through, and I think that'll do it. That'll do it. Frankie had control time on top position. He was looking like he was having the higher striking output on the feet throughout most of this fight. This just goes to show that somebody can be winning on paper or seem to be winning even visually, but you could still lose the fight, because Edgar was winning the first round, winning the second, and he got caught in the third. Very tragic for Edgar. Vera, he did a good job. I want to talk about Vera now because I just got done talking about Edgar. Vera had a good job of timing Edgar's movement in order to place that front kick because Vera was struggling in the first round. In the second, he was struggling finding his moment, finding his rhythm. In the feet, it looked like Edgar was even better on the feet too. But yeah, and so for a moment, Vera was getting controlled on the ground there. So to come back from getting controlled on the ground, to come back from getting outpointed on the feet, he goes and he shows a lot of heart to come back from all this. So even though he lost rounds 1 and 2, Vera said, hey, I'm not out. I'm going to come back on this third round here. And he did. He knocked him out there with that front kick. So Vera did a good job of adjusting during the fight. Once he got the rhythm of Edgar, that front kick landed, man. And this is very impressive win for Vera. So not only is Frankie a legend, but Vera was able to overcome adversity. As the fight went on, Vera was starting to stuff the takedowns more or get up more quickly from being taken down. So Edgar fought hard. We know Edgar's a warrior. He was looking good until he wasn't. Vera landed a devastating front kick that ended the fight, forcing the scorecards out of the window. And, you know, I'm real excited to see Vera move up from this. I want to see who he's going to fight next. This kid is showing a lot of heart. He's showing a lot of talent. I've seen Vera fight before. He's got sick movements. He's got very good mobility. He's got good striking, and he makes good wrestling adjustments like he did with this fight with Edgar. So I'm excited to see what's in store for him. He just beat a legend, so we got to look forward to Vera now because he just defeated Frankie Edgar. Now if you look back at everything Frankie Edgar has accomplished, this is really big for Vera. It's a big moment. Frankie Edgar almost is handing the torch down to him in a sense. He's not pulling that ladder back up behind him, as so some people say. He is leaving it down for people to climb up, and this is great. You know, it just shows a really good heart of Edgar, and he is a very, you know, good person. He has a family and stuff, and he knows that the fight game is mean business, and he's a person that's level-headed because when Frankie Edgar loses, he knows, man. He says, man, it's just a game, and that's how it is, and it's nothing like personal. It's just how it is. You know, Frankie just has a really good head on his shoulders. So he took this loss really well. After this loss, you know, of course, him and Vera were good. In between the fight, during the fight, I don't know if it was the second round or what, but in between one of the rounds, Vera flipped him off. And Frankie was like, what the heck's going on? And he kind of smiled at him and stuff. And then after the fight, after Vera won, he said in an interview, he said, look, it wasn't no bad blood. He said, it wasn't like we were personal. He said, I just did it. He said, I just wanted the fight to get crazy. And he said that Edgar was really pressing him. And Vera said, hey, I knew that Edgar was beating me. He said, I knew that Edgar was doing good. And he didn't say beating me, but he said, I knew that Edgar was doing good and all that stuff. And he said, I didn't want to back down. He said Edgar was putting the pace on him, putting the control on him, putting the strikes on him. And he said, I didn't want to show him weakness. He said that when that round was over, if he would have looked down, or he said he didn't want Edgar to see weakness. So he said, what did he do? The first thing that came to his head was flip the guy off. So that made the audience go crazy, including us as the audience watching too, whether from you were actually there or in TV, like just to see that, you're just kind of like, hey, what went on? I thought these guys respected each other. I thought these guys were cool. What is going on? Turns out it was all for show, and then yeah, they are cool. So yeah, Frankie respects Vera. Vera respects Frankie. Stats on that one. I'm gonna give you the stats real quick before I wrap this fight up. Basically, it comes down to, you know, Vera just defeated a legend. He's going to come back. I want to see who he's going to fight. Frankie, he doesn't want to retire yet. He says he's not thinking about retirement. So retirement for Frankie is going to be something we'll talk about later. Frankie says right now he's not retiring. He's not even thinking about it. So I can only take him at his word. That, of course, that's not up to him. That's up to the promotion. It's up to Dana White and all them. If they want to keep him fighting, they will. But right now, he's looking at he lost his last 2 fights already. Won his third one, the third fight from this fight. But he lost 2. He lost 2 already, and this just doesn't look good for him. And he also has not the last fight from that fight, but the last fight from that, he has another knockout that he lost. So he's looking at like 3 knockouts already. It doesn't look good. I don't think Frankie is in danger of getting cut yet. I think if he loses another one, he could for sure be on the chopping block. But I think he's okay for now. I don't know his contract right now. I don't know if he has 2-3 fights left. Sometimes I do, but for him, I don't, not for him. But I did read up on him, do some research on Edgar to see what he said after the fight. He says he does not plan to retire. So as far as I'm concerned, he'll fight again, right? If the promotion lets him. So I want to go over the stats real fast. Edgar had 68.3% total strikes. Vera had 58.8. So Frankie definitely was beating him on the feet, scoring the higher volume strikes there on the feet, finding more success there. Significant strikes was Edgar, of course, took the lead again, 60.6%, where Vera had 53.7. So again, Frankie showing the total strikes. He's showing the more significant strikes. And again, it's just I bet Frankie's got to be kicking himself in the butt and frustrated right now because he was winning this fight. He was winning on the scorecards. He was winning everything. And yeah, he had this fight pretty much won, but that's not true because Frankie ended up getting TKO'd there. The takedowns, Edgar had 3 out of 9, so there was 6 of them that Vera was able to stuff as the fight went on. Because in the beginning he was getting taken down, getting controlled, but as the fight went on, he started getting that down. Now Vera had no takedowns, and so that's pretty much where we're at there. So on paper, man, it looked like Frankie was winning, and he was, but he got caught he let that kick come through, and that's all. That'll do it. So that's pretty much where we're at. We're ready for Vera to see who he's going to fight next, and we're ready for Frankie to see if he's going to come back, right? So next fight I'm going to talk about is actually going to be the co-main event. And this was for the title, a women's title, Rose Namajunas versus Weili Zhang. And, I love the women fights because, a lot of guys say, man, a lot of times they actually didn't think the women were going to be fighting. Even the producers and the people in charge of UFC didn't really think for a long time that women weren't even going to do it. And then, there was a market for it, and they realized there was. And whenever they started getting that down and getting those tactics down, it took off. The rest is history, and I feel like I've seen thousands and thousands of fights, and each time the women fight, they bring it more than some of the guys. I'm not going to say all the guys, but they bring it more than some dudes that I see fighting. So with that being said, this one was fireworks. This one was for a strawweight title, which I believe is 115. So tiny girls, but don't let that fool you because these girls are strong and fast. Rose Namajunas, Weili Zhang. The result was a decision win for Namajunas. And I'm going to kind of break this down here. So pretty much Zhang, we're going to talk about Zhang first. Zhang, she trained at Fight Ready in Arizona with former UFC 2-division champion Henry Cejudo. So that was evident as Weili was using leg kicks on Namajunas as well as engaging in the clinch. So even though Weili was unsuccessful in reclaiming the strawweight belt, she said her approach was the right one. And Weili said, hey, kicking was part of the plan, but she only showed a small percentage of what they had planned and that she could do better. So Weili says that she's looking forward to another rematch with Rose, and let me tell you that this is not happening now. Weili is 0-2 with Rose. So she has to go back, fight another contender, most likely would have to win dominantly in order to even be talked about fighting for a title already. Another fight for the belt is on the right track of mind. So she wants that's a good for her if she wants to get back on the belt, then that she's on the right track. But after going 0-2 with Rose for the title, I just don't see anything that warrants a third one for now. Zhang will have to show us something else now. Go back, get a few more dominant wins in order to prove that she's still the number one contender to get that third shot with Rose for the title. If Rose isn't the champion anymore by then, well then there might not be a third fight. But if Rose can keep it up, keep her wins up, and still keep the champion, we could possibly see a third fight if Weili kicks more butt a couple of fights, and they're real good, like real dominant finish. I think she could jump right back in. I just don't see Weili right now in the mix with Rose, at least, because the first fight, Weili was heavily favored. And I think that was really the only thing that made it possible. One of the factors, heavily factored, was that Weili was favored. Because in the first fight, that Weili didn't really touch her. She didn't really punch her. She didn't really do anything. The fight only lasted a minute. And Rose feinted some kicks low, and then she went high around a minute and 20 or a minute, whatever, and it just landed her, and that's what dropped her, and that's what got her to finish. So we didn't really see enough of Weili. We didn't see, Weili didn't get to show her skills like she was talking about. She said, I had a game plan, I had this, and I did this, and I learned all these skills, and I didn't get to do it. So she says now she's getting a rematch. Another thing is if she got beat in that first fight, in the first round, why are they going to make it a second fight? Well, I'm going to tell you why. Because she was favored, so people said, hey, I want to see what this fight is going to look like again. Let's do it again. And there's another reason why, because nobody stepped up. All of the straw weight division, out of all those 15 girls, not one of them said, me, I'm going to fight. I do me. Nobody. So Weili, of course, got her rematch. So I think that's what it boiled down to, getting this rematch to be possible, because nothing from that first fight to me screamed, hey, rematch. She got finished in the first round. That sucks. But I just feel like there was no competition for Rose. But now in the second fight, she did do good. She did go the distance, but she still came up short. But like I said, nothing from that first fight screamed a rematch. Zhang was finished in a minute, never landed a punch on her. Rose was clearly dominant. So, I mean, I do think Zhang had more to prove for sure. She didn't get to display the skills in the fight, in that first fight with Rose. Zhang with the distance, the second fight. So I do give props to Weili for making the effort. This second fight was better than the first. She went the distance, and her performance was better, even though she was unsuccessful. But so she got to show the use of the leg kick attacks. And she showed a little bit of wrestling from the training with Cejudo, because Cejudo was, I think, predominantly a wrestler. He was a very good striker. He was a former 2-division champion. He trained her for this fight. So going into this rematch, we knew, hey, this fight is going to be different already, because Henry Cejudo, who's really good, is teaching her. I didn't think that was enough for her to win. That's why I picked Rose to win. But I did know that this round 2 might be a little different than the first. I did think the second fight might be a little different than the first fight, even though the first fight didn't scream a rematch, even though it didn't. But like I said, I think the only reason that was because nobody spoke up and nobody said, she was just so heavily favored in Weili. That's probably it. And because making sense out of this is just real crazy as to why there was even the rematch there. But I really do think that Weili displayed better techniques than the first fight. So even though Weili lost, she shouldn't be so brokenhearted. I think she still has something to keep her head up high. She may say, hey, look, I lost, whatever, but look, she did good. She did her wrestling. She did throw some strikes. She did throw some kicks. I will say this, in the beginning, she was having a little trouble finding her kicking range because she was just staying too far away from Rose. But as the fight went on, she was starting to land and she was starting to hit, she was starting to find her rhythm, but it just wasn't enough because the offense of Rose just shut her down more. And really, Weili says, even though she lost, she says that her approach was the correct one. She just maybe didn't execute it right, but her approach was the correct one. She says that she didn't execute those skills the right way. And that wasn't good enough, to beat Rose. So before fighting Namajunas, Weili was on a 20-fight win streak. I wanted to say this because this is crazy. So I definitely think she has what it takes to come back into title contention. A 21-fight win streak is not easy to do. Now, I don't know if she was fighting cans or who she was fighting, but she won 21 times in a row. And in professional events. So I'm sure that she has potential to come back. She showed me that she could, because in the first fight, I had doubts. Said, how are you going to have a rematch when you ended it so quickly. But then in the second fight, she did back it up. She said, hey, I might have lost, but she did show her technique, her improved skill. I think her footwork could have been a little better in the beginning, but that improved as it went along. I just think she was kind of too far away from Rose. But then she started getting comfortable, started, trying to get in there. Never could get her offense really going to get Rose out of there. So I do think that Weili has potential, even though she lost to Rose twice. I think she has potential to come back. Maybe not now, while Rose is still champion. If Weili goes and knocks somebody out in the first round, I don't think anybody is going to say, oh, Weili's going to fight Rose again. I don't think so, just because she's already lost twice to him. Even though the second fight was better, but just nothing screams this third match. Weili is going to have to win 5, 6, 7 fights, finish them all dominant in order to even be talked about with Rose again. Is it possible for her to fight Rose again? Absolutely. I'm just saying, as long as Rose is there, I just don't think it's unlikely for now. I think it's gonna have to be a couple of more years. You have to get a couple more wins. But to further break it down, for Rose, that first fight was great, and she got it done early. But this second fight for Weili, it took her through a 5-round ride. Rose said, hey, I knocked her out the first fight. Round 1. Now she's going to come back in the second one, and she really took it to her. Rose had to dig deep. Rose had to dig much deeper in order to retain this title. And this fight went to a split decision. That means at least one judge thought Weili could have won. It's crazy, but nonetheless, Rose will stay strawweight champion. She put on a really good performance for a tough fight. Zhang really tried to bust out all the stops for this fight. Zhang was using leg kicks. She was trying to utilize wrestling, but Rose just stayed on her own game plan, and that was enough to get the split decision win. It also looked like Rose strikes had more power in them. Her shots were thrown with more intention. It looked like her shots were doing more damage. This could have swayed the judges also, because she had more power shots. So not only was she looking good on the feet in the 4th and 5th round, but she was having a lot. She looked like she was doing the more damaging strikes. And I think the 3rd and 4th round is really where it came down to, because the first 3 rounds were kind of close. They were kind of close, but we'll get to that. So that means that one judge thinks that Weili could have won. And I don't know what they were thinking, because if you watch this fight, I think Rose was in the right. I think everybody sees that Rose won. But you do have some of those guys, that will say, oh no, they won, when really I don't think they did. I just don't think Weili did enough. She did really good. I just think Rose controlled her for the 4th and the 5th round. Because the first 3 were just kind of, they were real close. E1, round 2, round 1, round 2, round 3. To me, they were real close. They could have made maybe either or. Both girls were still kind of trying to find their pep and trying to find their step. But yeah, Weili was trying to establish her offense in the beginning, but was standing too far outside. But as the fight went on, Weili got better footing. She was finding a better rhythm. Zhang was also able to set up a few takedowns early in the fight. Now, this could have thrown off Rose. But another thing, because it would have given Rose another thing to worry about, like, oh, I'm striking, now she's taking me down. But as the fight went on, Rose showed her aggression and her toughness and making it through the fight. Even though Zhang was able to get a few takedowns, it wasn't enough as the fight went on. So the first 3 rounds were close and very competitive. Both women were looking pretty even. Rose took over in the championship rounds, those 4th and 5th rounds. Rose showed a lot of strength in doing takedowns of her own. Earlier in the fight, in the previous rounds, when Zhang was able to take Rose down, Rose would get to the fight back on the feet. However, when Rose was able to take Weili down, Rose was able to control her a little longer, and Weili couldn't get up. So you could see where Rose, as the fight went on, was showing a little bit more of the superior grappling there and making those adjustments to give her the edge and come out in positional dominance. So Rose got control, and this was allowing her to score more points over Zhang whenever she was starting to get her wrestling in order here towards the end. So when Rose would get positional dominance, Weili was not going to get back up, and she was able to show her superior grappling by not allowing Zhang to get back to her feet, especially in the last round. The 5th round, Rose was able to grab a body lock and then take Weili down, where Rose would get positional dominance for a majority of the 5th round. Rose was keeping the control, putting the pressure, especially in the last 2 rounds, and that's what I think did this fight. I think this fight boils down to that. In the first 3 rounds, it was close, but Weili going for kicks. She was a bit too much on the outside, but as the fight went on, she was getting better, man. She was getting better, but it wasn't enough. For Rose, she made it past the early grappling advances. She was able to get the fight back standing, along with some technical kickboxing between the two. Rose's strikes were just looking like they had more power in them. The judges noticed this too. I'm sure the power strikes had something to do with her winning, but it was mostly the wrestling in the 4th and 5th round, where she was able to get Zhang down and not let her up and control the last 2 rounds. Those last 2 rounds, I think, was what really sealed the deal. Had Weili had more control time in these last 4 and 5th rounds, then we would be looking at a new champion. But I think I think Rose turned it up in the 4th and 5th round and was able to get the dominance, get the control that she needed, score the points that she needed on the feet, score the points that she needed with the control time in positional dominance in order to get this win and retain her title. So I really do think that the first 3 rounds were close, but like I said, it was in those 4th and 5th rounds. This is it. This is it for these guys. That's pretty much what happened in this fight here. Zhang's a good fighter. You know, I wish the best for her in the future. But Rose was the better fighter in this night and in this fight. Rose, she was looking very dominant. She will fight anyone and is constantly looking to fight the best. So we can't wait to see what's next in store for the Thug. I think her name is Thug Rose Namajunas, her nickname there. So I'm gonna say some stats before I go to the main event. This fight was very awesome, these girls. So Rose total strikes 59.4%. Zhang had a little bit more, 59.6. In significant strikes, this is where Rose turned it up a little bit. She had a little bit more precision in the significant strikes, 51.2%, and Zhang had 48%. Now, in the takedowns, Rose only shot twice, and she got both of those takedowns, where she was able to keep enough control in order to win and get ahead on the scorecards in those 4th and 5th round. She had enough control over Weili, enough points on the feet to where she won the decision. So now in the takedowns, Weili took her down 5 times, mostly early on. She tried to take her down 11 times total throughout the whole fight, though. So even Rose was starting to get, she might have gotten taken down by Zhang at first, but then as the fight went on, she was adjusting. She was able to stuff some of these fights, she was able to stuff some of these takedowns. And submission attempts, neither girl had a submission attempt. So with those 2 takedowns, Rose did a lot of control time, enough to win those. She was able to keep the control. Now, we're going to move on to the main event. And this was for the welterweight title. Now, this one was fireworks. This was all fireworks. Usman won this fight by a unanimous decision, but I'm going to tell you about it. This was their second fight. Covington put on a good, hard fight. Both of these guys should be very proud. Both guys were rocked at certain points of the fight. Each guy had their moment. It was an exciting, high-paced fight. Much like their first fight, this was all fireworks, super high energy. Covington tried really hard, but fell short as the judges declared a unanimous decision win for Usman. And, I mean, so that's 25 minutes of high-pace, high-action. I mean, both of these guys laid everything on the line here. Covington was really close to victory in this fight, despite being dropped by Usman a couple times. Covington was able to tough it out, tough through it, and even go as far as to connect with Usman and rock him also. But Usman is so determined to win, he would not go out. Covington had a good footwork, he had good mobility, but his strikes lacked the intention and the power of the strikes of Usman. So Usman just playing through heavier bombs. He had a strength advantage, no doubt. Usman did. So Colby did a good job of recovering when he was dropped by Usman. Colby even put together some good combinations trying to throw the game plan off of Usman, or trying to throw Usman's game plan off. But Colby had fast hands, but Usman just had the strength for sure, especially after seeing that second fight, knowing that Usman had a strength advantage. Usman was just a step ahead of Colby Covington. He just couldn't make the right reads to get Usman out of there. But the same could be said. The same could be said with Colby, because Usman couldn't put him out either. So Colby couldn't get put away by Usman, and then Usman couldn't get put away by Colby. So none of these guys could finish each other, is what I'm trying to say. Colby was outscored by Usman, and that's why Usman won the decision. He won it pretty much on the feet, and it seemed to be connecting with the more powerful shots. Like I said before, Usman, he did a good job of keeping the pace. He was keeping the pressure. Usman did not let Colby get away with much, and he stayed in front of him and continued to outscore him the whole time. He continued to outscore Covington on the feet. Colby also had a good pace though, but those power shots by Usman just proved too much. It did so much damage compared to Colby's strikes. And I think that this had something to do with the scoring as well. I do think that Usman won. If I were a judge, I would probably give the decision to Usman too. But Covington says otherwise. After the fight, the two appeared to be making up. After the fight and the post fight, he's in the octagon. They were shaking hands, and Colby said, "Hey, it's all we'll show, whatever. Everything's cool." And the referee Dan Mergada said, "Hey, I like that. I like that you guys are like cool." So they have a very peaceful moment. If you're a fan, you know that these two dudes have really bad blood. You know these two dudes are out to get each other. But they shook hands after a fight. Much respect. But that went all out the window. That went out the window in about 5 seconds. So I'm gonna tell you why. So it was looking for a moment to me like we would live in a world where Usman and Covington get along. But this was quickly cut short because during the post-fight interview, Colby stated that he should have won that fight. He went on to say that Usman was a cheater. He said that even during the second fight, he said in the octagon, immediately after the fight, Colby told Usman that he was the better man that night. But he quickly went back on his word because at the press fight conference, he said that Usman was cheating. He said Usman was holding his glove when they were fighting. He said Usman kept hitting him in the back of the head, which are illegal strikes. Apparently, Covington spoke to the referee before the match and told him, make sure Usman doesn't hit me in the back of the head. Covington explains that Usman did hit him in the back of the head. The ref telling the ref obviously didn't do anything, but this is all hearsay. We'd have to go back and watch the tape. Covington says if you go back and watch the tape, he says you can clearly see him hitting me in the back of the head. Now, but me personally, I didn't see it yet in the fight. I didn't see it in the fight. I wasn't looking for it. I was watching the fight. Wasn't looking for cheating. I was just watching the fight. I was looking at skills. I was looking at tactics. I wasn't looking for cheating. So I'd have to go back and see if these are true. But Covington claims they are. He says, if you look at the videotape, you can see where he did it, where he hit him in the back of the head and stuff. So that's coming from Covington. Covington thinks, hey, I can still come back from this. I can still win with Usman. But I just think that with 2 losses in a row with Usman, especially with such a big gap, because they fought in 2019, then they fought again in 2021, and it was just a little bit of the same thing. In the first fight, Colby really took it to him. Colby really put on the pace, really was the closest guy to beating Usman at that point in time. In between those 2 years, both guys have learned so much. Covington went on to fight former champion Tyron Woodley. Usman went on to defend the title against Masvidal twice, Burns once, So both these guys learned and evolved within these 2 years. But now in this second fight, it was a little bit similar to the first fight as far as the pace and the volume. But where I was saying earlier is that where it was going to be in a previous podcast, where the fight was going to be different, but the same. The same as far as energy, as far as level, but different as far as like techniques and heart and skills and who wants it, because these guys have evolved and learned so much in between this time. So, Covington, he just always has something to say. Regardless, Usman is the official winner. Like I said before, I do think that Usman should have won. I don't think there's any foul play here as far as who won, but Covington's saying that this guy's cheating, so we'll have to keep an eye there, I guess. He always has something to say. There's no surprise there. I do think he put up an excellent fight. I think he showed a lot of heart, especially getting rocked a couple of times. He was dropped by Usman, and Kobe didn't want to go down, And I think he managed to hang in there. And Covington, he put up a good fight. Still came up short. Usman was just a step ahead of him. Usman scored more points on the feet, and Usman controlled the pace of the fight as well as having more devastating power. Each hit from Usman was like a chip off the health bar, man. It might not have took Kobe out, but there was a couple of shots in there that looked like the fight was going to be over. There was a couple of instances where I thought the Usman was fixing to win, and then there was a couple of instances where I thought Kobe could have got it because Usman was right. I think Usman is on his way to being one of the best to ever do it. And I think out of all his title defenses, he's at 5 title defenses right now. Kobe was the most threat, and he fought him twice. So Usman is really close to reaching the heights of former UFC champion George St Pierre. Usman recently surpassed St Pierre for the most consecutive UFC wins with 15 and is almost at 16, which could tie Anderson Silva's record, because I think Anderson Silva's record at 16 wins. So Usman's title defenses are, Covington twice, Masvidal twice, Burns once, comes out to 5. So George St Pierre, a pioneer of the sport, who is also a Hall of Famer, he has 9 consecutive welterweight title defenses. He also won the middleweight belt, and I'm not going to talk about him because we're talking about Usman and Covington, but I just wanted to say George St Pierre achievements just because I'm going to compare it to Usman, because Usman is right behind George St Pierre. Usman is at 5 welterweight title defenses. Should he win 4 more times, he'll tie the welterweight title defense record with St Pierre. And should he win a 10th time, then he will surpass St Pierre's legacy. So he is almost there. He is about to reach the heights of George St Pierre. Pretty much saying that if Usman can win 4 more times, if he can defend the title 4 more times, that would tie him with St Pierre. And if he gets a 10th win, that's going to elevate him. That's going to elevate his legacy even more if he gets a 10th title win. We would have a broken record with that one right there. In the good broken record, not the bad broken record. So that's what I think Usman is doing. I think he wants to fight the best and eventually be the best. For a while now, Usman has been slowly creeping up the ladder. It's interesting to see what's next in store for Usman. Can he beat St Pierre's record? Right now, Usman is looking like he has the skills and ability to possibly do either tie George St Pierre's record or beat it. And he's already beaten the consecutive wins, but he is now looking to take on the record to break the welterweight title defense. The welterweight title defense records. So before I give the stats, I just want to just say a couple of sentences just to give a recap on this main event here. So pretty much Covington brought the heat, man. Covington was able to rock Usman. Covington had good footwork, good mobility. He had the cardio for days. I did not once question Colby Covington's cardio. I knew that Covington could go the 25 rounds, which he did. But it wasn't in the cardio department. It wasn't in the endurance department where Colby failed. It was in just the skill. He was just outclassed by Usman. I do believe that not only was he outclassed, but the power of Usman definitely Colby felt. I think it changed his game. It played with him a little bit. Colby never was defeated in the sense of, I'm just going to let him beat me. I'm just going to let him win. He never was defeated like that. He stayed in the fight, finished the fight. He kept putting on his offense. He never backed down from Usman. I'm just saying that Usman was having the higher success rate. He was having the higher success. He was having the higher striking volume. He was just having the more octagon control. He had the more devastating power. He had the more devastating hits, more devastating strikes, heavier strikes. It just went in favor of Usman here. I think Usman, outskilled him, outclassed him, and I think Covington, he had all the endurance in the world. I think he had all the cardio in the world, but he just was a step behind Usman on the feet. I think Usman was just more powerful and a step ahead of him. So the stats, Usman, For the total strikes, Usman has 47%. Covington has 39.9%. So you can see where Usman was having the success there. And in the significant strikes, the story is the same. 42% for Usman, and then Covington had 38.1. So we still see Usman winning here. Not too much significant strikes, but not too much ahead of him, because 42 compared to 38 is very close. But in the fight game, when you're scoring this, it all adds up. And Usman had a higher striking volume on the significant strikes, and he had a higher striking volume on the total strikes, which is just racking up these points here. And Usman had one takedown, and he got it. He only shot down once and got it. Covington tried to take Usman down 11 times and got denied all 11. That means Usman has never officially been taken down. Not one man has ever took him down yet. This is crazy. With that being said, Covington did take Usman down in the fight, but it wasn't counted officially. He did bring him to his knees, but he got back up really quick. The UFC didn't register it as an official takedown. So officially, UFC records, Usman still has 100% takedown defense, which is unheard of. Well, even the best grapplers in the whole world even get taken down, and you know, Usman hasn't. Nobody's done it. Nobody has posed a threat to Usman like Covington has. I think if we were living in a world where Usman wasn't here, I think Covington would be the champion. If Usman was in a different promotion, if Usman was in a different organization, I think that's the only way, because Usman has Kobe's number, fought him twice already. Wasn't immediate either. It was a 2-year gap in between their fights, and we still had the same story. Each fight had the same story. They were different as far as skills and evolves and stuff and evolving, but it was the same as far as pace and high output. Colby has brought everything to the table. Colby has done everything this man can do to try to dethrone Usman, and I just think he's a step behind. I'm not saying he could never beat Usman, but right now, in this moment of time, he proved that he could bring everything he had, and he proved that he could take it to Usman. Usman didn't get finished, because Usman's finishing guys. You know, Usman's got knockouts and all this stuff. He finishes fights, but he wasn't able to finish Colby. So that's one thing Colby has going for him. I just hate the position that Covington is in right now, because, yeah, he might be a little crazy sometimes. He's the villain. Whenever he gets on the microphone, whenever he gets in front of the camera, Colby Covington takes the persona of this villain, you know? And I just feel that Covington is not going to be able to claim the title as long as Usman is here. Covington already fought him twice. We have the same story. Covington put his heart out, wasn't able to do it. He put as much pressure as he could on him. He did everything in his power to try to get Usman out of there, and he couldn't do it. I don't think Covington right now has what it takes to get Usman out of there, but he comes pretty close. He comes really close. It just sucks, because now that he's fought Usman twice and they were so hard, we saw what Covington can bring. And since he can't take Usman out, and he's done it twice, and they both went pretty, round one, I think, almost went the distance, almost went the 25 rounds. And then this fight did go the 25 rounds. What can Colby Covington do to beat Usman? What can Colby Covington do to take this man out? I don't think he can right now. With that being said, I do feel bad for Covington, because now that he's fought Usman twice and lost, if Covington wins his next fight, Covington could knock out the guy in a minute. Covington could submit the guy in 30 seconds. And I still don't think he's going to come back with Usman. He's already brought everything. Covington can beat other people, but if he's going to beat Usman, I just don't think he's there yet. And both these fights proved it. So now you got Covington talking, you know, making excuses, saying, oh, he was cheating this, cheating that, you know. I mean, the guy might be trying to save himself, save face, whatever. I respect him. You know, I always want to respect people. You know, I have good things to say about Covington. I have good things to say about Usman. But I do think Usman, at the end of the day, Usman has Covington's number. And I don't think, as long as Usman is the king of the welterweight division, as long as Usman is the champion, it's going to be really hard for Covington to get back up there. Nothing is going to warrant a third match. Covington could beat 2 guys, 3 guys, devastatingly, could knock them silly. And I still don't know if that's enough to warrant a fight with Usman, just because Usman shows that he's still the superior guy. He's superior striking he's superior feet movement. Usman has a discipline that I've never seen in a fighter. You know, I've been watching UFC for a long time, been keeping up with fighters, doing research a long time. I've never seen anybody with the discipline as Kamaru Usman. So Usman's going to be a tough man to beat. And we're going to end this on this note. I hope that Covington will come back, recollect himself, rebuild himself, and see what is the best possible thing for him. I don't know if Covington is going to be able to fight Usman a third time. I think he's going to have to win 10 times in order to come back and fight Usman. That is what I believe. I do not think Covington's going to fight 1-2 fights and then win dominant, even if he wins, because he's in a position where even if he wins dominantly, he can't do it. We've already seen these fights. Usually when stuff like this happens, if a guy loses a fight and they're number 1 contender, they win a couple of fights, knockout, devastating, boom, they're right there in the title contention again. But like I said, I just think Usman is 1 step ahead of Covington. Covington has the cardio for days. He has the endurance for days, but he was just outclassed on the feet and he was outpowered. And, you know, and those power shots, I think, took a lot. I think those power shots from Usman, those power strikes took a lot more out of Covington than what he is willing to say. I have all the respect for Covington. I want to see him again. He's fast. He's good. He's amazing. He has good cardio. I just don't think he has what it takes to beat Usman now. So for right now, that's where we're at. So for right now, we're ready to see Colby rebuild, see what's going to happen next. And then Usman is looking to get 4 title defenses. Once he gets 4, he's looking for that 10th one. He's going to surpass St Pierre. He's going to attempt to. And that's where we're at.
Well, that's going to be good. Thank you for breaking it down. I know we've got other things I want to talk about. Unfortunately, we only have a minute left. You did it perfect. I've got another podcast. I've got an interview coming up in about 10 minutes. But it was really good. You finished it right on time. You're just now right at the mark. That was great. I know you and I had talked about that. I know we still got things we got to talk about. I know we had some Conor McGregor news, some Amanda Nunes news. If we can hold that up to next week, I know we're not going to be able to have that, and I don't want to rush through it because I know it's stuff that we want to talk. So we'll hold on to that for next week. I do want to ask you real quick, what do you have coming up on 269? What do you know about that real quick?
On 269, it's
do you
going
have
to be
a date set already?
Yes.
As to when it's going to be?
Yes, I do have a date for that. Officially right now, you know, things could change, but right now, the date is going to be looking like December 11th, okay? December 11th for UFC 269. I'm just going to tell you the card. It's going to be a 5-round card. Of course, they're going to have prelims and all that. But for the main card, it's going to be Sean O'Malley versus Rulian Pova. Sorry, some of these names are kind of crazy. I'm going to have to touch up on some of these names. Sean O'Malley versus Rulian Pava. This is a bantamweight fight. So the second fight is going to be Cody Garbrandt versus Kai Kara France. This is a flyweight fight. So this is actually at 125 pounds for guys. So this is going to be a crazy fight. The third fight is a welterweight fight between Jorge Masvidal and Leon Edwards. This fight is fireworks. We're going to be talking about this fight. The co-main event is Amanda Nunes versus Juliana Pena. Now, this one's a big fight too. We're going to be breaking this down, of course, when the time comes, but I'm just kind of introducing it for now. And so the women bantamweight title is on the line here. the women bantamweight title. So Amanda Nunes is going to take on Pena. Pena is looking to dethrone the champ, something that nobody has done yet. People can't even get close to Amanda. People are afraid to fight Amanda. It's crazy. But, you know, this woman has a lot of good things going for her, and everybody's proud of Amanda right now. But I'm not counting Juliana out. You know, everybody might think, oh, Amanda's gonna do this or that or whatever, but, you know, we can never count anybody out. This is the fight game. We all know what Amanda Nunes can do now, but Juliana Pena, you know, we're gonna give her the benefit of a doubt. We're gonna give her the respect that she deserves, and I do know that she's a good striker, good mobility, good footwork. And I don't want to start breaking down all this here because then we'll be here forever. But she does have potential. She does have potential to fight Amanda for sure. Now, the heavy, the main event is gonna be a lightweight title fight. And this is going to be Charles Oliveira, who is the lightweight champion. He just beat Michael Chandler in the second round a few months ago in Houston for the lightweight title. And so now he's fighting Poirier. And of course, we all know what Poirier just got done with that rivalry with McGregor. And, you know, I say he just got done, but the feud is still there, trust me. And so, yeah, we're going to be looking at Charles Oliveira for Dustin Poirier for the main event, and Dustin's going to try to take the title. You know, I have a lot of respect for Brazilians. I know that they're so good. They have such good submissions, and not only Brazilians being good submission people, but they have really good strikes, and they have so much heart and passion. So Oliveira can do everything. This kid's got submissions. This kid has got power. We've seen him where people think that he's just people think they see his size. He might not have too many muscles, or he might be a skinny kid or whatever, but he has hands, he has knockout power, and he can submit you. So wherever the fight goes, Oliveira is very well rounded. He's good striking, he's good grappling. Dustin Poirier, he's very good too. He's got good, you know, he can do submissions, but Dustin, he'll keep it on the feet if he can. You know, he predominantly likes to strike, and then he'll do grappling second. But that doesn't mean Dustin, you know, can't grapple. But I would personally, I don't usually like to favor fighters too much, because, you know, we're on the podcast. I try to meet it on the middle. I try to meet each guy in the middle. But I would like to see Poirier win this one, just because we're American. We're from America. We would love the lightweight belt to come to America. But no disrespect to Charles Oliveira. This Oliveira's gonna bring it, you know.
I think it's going to be good next Wednesday when we get here. I know I like that Amanda Nunes and Juliana Pena, so I definitely want to talk about that, and of course the main event. So it's going to be good, but you guys will have to tune in until next week. I'm sorry, I wish we could talk another 30 minutes, but we ran out of time, and I've got to prepare for the next interview that's coming in about 10 minutes. So thank you, Val. I'm going to take a look at this over the weekend. I'll have some time over the weekend to kind of get a little bit more familiar with UFC 269. And like I said, it's December 11th, so that we're still a little ways off from that. The week prior to that is when we do our predictions, and then we put them up there. So tune in for that. Next Wednesday, we'll be talking UFC 269. Obviously, we'll preview that main card, and then of course, whatever we were going to talk. I know you have some news on Connor. We'll get all that next Wednesday. But until then, Val, man, thank you very much. You did an awesome job, like you always do, breaking this down. The video will be uploaded late tonight, probably about between 11 and 12. I think that we've got, I probably won't get out the podcast at about 10:15 is what it looks like tonight. It's a pretty long one. So once I get off that, I'll put this up. Go to GT Sports YouTube channel. Go to YouTube. And look up GT Sports, of course, and then you'll be able to catch this podcast number 3. So it was great, Val. Thank you very much, man. Have a great evening. You do an awesome job here for us. I appreciate everything you do, and I think our fans or the people that follow us will continue. We can keep this consistency, because what you're saying here and the notes that you have, that's a lot of research you're doing. You know, you're watching, but you're having to put your notes together. So, you know, we were able to do the whole podcast, and that was great. That's exactly what I want. That's exactly what I think this podcast needs. Now I got to find you somebody that can debate it, somebody a lot better than me, and I'm looking for that as well. But I'm thanking you for coming in and doing what you do, man. That's awesome. I think people are going to like that. So until next Wednesday, brother, thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to breaking down or previewing, actually, UFC 269. So have a good evening, brother, and look for this either tonight or tomorrow in the morning.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you, brother.
Mhm.